So, if we come back together again, delighted once again that we have the bonus ball, an additional member of our panel for discussion to bring further insights. And I'm delighted to welcome Christian Verschuren, who's Director General at Eurocommerce, which obviously represents kind of retail, wholesale, and the international trade sectors. So a huge range of organizations that, again, directly connect into the world of consumers. And I wonder whether, Christian, maybe give you the floor for 3 or 4 minutes. You've heard the interventions from a consumer perspective, but a business perspective as well. Our challenge still is that journey towards sustainability and that connection with the customer, with the consumer, and what are the most effective strategies in a competitive world. And I just wonder from the Eurocommerce perspective whether you'd like to offer us a couple of insights on this together, get the discussion going further.
Thank you very much, Peter, and good afternoon, good evening to everyone. First of all, thank you very much. And before answering your question, I think let me first offer my sincere congratulations also to ICE and all the team and the members. I think it's 60 years is a very respectable age. I mean, it's we're only going to celebrate our 20th anniversary next year as Eurocommerce. So I think we're really indeed. So we owe a lot of respect from that perspective, but also for the number of engagement and voluntary initiatives that you have signed, that you have committed to, and also reported quite significant progress on. And clearly, retail, wholesale, the whole particularly distributive trade, which we represent. I mean, both sort of the large retailers. And very well-known household names that but also the sort of a small shop owners, basically as the last link between manufacturers, producers, and the end consumers. So, and in fact, from that perspective, also a key role to play, and a role that of course the retailers does play in terms of bringing products in convenience, as Monique alluded to in her intervention, and also at the at the most affordable price. And I think in the sustainability area, first of all, retailers has a responsibility in terms of continuously improving its own supply chain, and something that it does. And I mean, over the last 50 years, since I think World War II, we not only have seen how the world of commerce and retail has changed, just in the same way as the washing has changed from what you see there and what you saw on Valerie's slides, to modern and convenience through the kind of products that Mr. Samuelson brought forward. And at the same time, I think the retail has changed with the advent of the modern supermarkets. Choices, increased opening hours, and increasingly also the advent of e-commerce. And I will come maybe in the debate also on the importance of e-commerce and how that plays quite a pivotal role also in delivering consumer information. We all struggle, manufacturers, in terms of what information can you provide to the consumer through the labels and the limitation you have on the package, and how things will change now with QR codes, mobile shopping, with more product information you can find on the internet, etc. And that's basically we have only really seen the very beginning of that. I want to maybe just 1 or 2 remarks on some of these initiatives that have been spoken about, and where individual retailers have signed up to. I mean, I was actually quite astonished to see how the number of individual retailers that are direct members of Eurocommerce, like the Carrefour, the Tesco, Sainsbury, M&S, Aldi, Ahold, Auchan, Kaufland, Mercadona, just to name just a few names from various countries that have really signed up to your first key campaign that you had, the Wash Right campaign. And we also see a number of sort of retailers being interested in the new campaign as well. And clearly there is I think a role that we can play in sort of bringing awareness, playing a role in consumer education. I think, as Monique said, of course, consumer education is not everything. I mean, the legislator has a key role to play. I think there is key legislative initiatives that were brought forward with the eco-design, with consumer information. But in addition to that, the economic operators, can play a very and should play a very useful role. And therefore, and I draw the parallel of what we do, and possibly I think we can and we should do more in the industry that you represent, that is a non-food industry, when we have just spent the last several weeks or several months, and I think Monique and I were in a sort of high-level forum on the food supply chain last night until 8 o'clock at night, and to try to agree some voluntary agreements between the farmers, which are always a very difficult bunch to deal with, and the manufacturers and the retailers on a voluntary approach on commercial practices. And another example, I think you're all aware of the Retail Forum, which has agreed, and we have had this year a waste agreement whereby 17 retailers and 2 associations have agreed on a voluntary agreement to raise awareness about the issues of waste, primarily food waste, but not only. And I'm pleased to see that now we have discussions on textiles, where some of the initiatives that you're bringing forward are also being discussed, and therefore there is, I think, scope for bringing again this dialogue between retailer retail and consumers, and retailer and manufacturers on some of the sustainability initiative. Because a challenge that retailers have, and I've been working more in upstream industries before, where there is actually a lot of knowledge. I think several of you alluded to also the remarks by Commissioner Potočnik. I think the energy, the intellectual power that you have in terms of developing a new solution, clearly a lot of that resides within industry. I think there is a lot of knowledge, but of a different kind, within the retail. And I've often encouraged our members, having worked particularly in the chemical industry for a number of years, to basically go and talk to people that have the knowledge, so that there is a mutual understanding of the constraints, but also the opportunities and what the solutions that you bring can bring forward for consumers.
Okay, some interesting thoughts there. If there is a question or a comment, just wave, because I'm always keen to bring you in. So do just kind of do that, and the microphone will come to you at an astonishing rate, he says in hope. But I just wonder, one thing you said at the start of your presentation, Valerie, which was the consumer is not the boss. And I just wonder whether there was a reaction from, because I think what I get from that is that there's a higher issue here. We have to take the journey to sustainable development, and that means just because the consumer articulates that they want it quick, cheap, and I couldn't care less, maybe there's a higher purpose here. There's something beyond, and I just wondered whether you might like to react to that directly, either Monique or Jackie, with a microphone.
Thank you. Well, I think it's a very realistic observation. The consumer is not the boss. I mean, the consumer is not in the driver's seat. Whatever the official speeches are that industry is delivering towards consumer expectations, it's not that way around.
Right.
So, but that means that but I don't say that the consumer doesn't have any responsibility. I would not say that. There is also, as a citizen, you have to have responsibility when it comes to the environment. But the power to influence is quite, at individual level, quite low, I would say. Therefore, we believe that it's the agent of change towards sustainability is the industry. Unless industry doesn't act, and then it's the policymaker.
Right. Okay, do you want to?
Yes, I think we all agree that the consumer is not in charge. It's very difficult for an individual person to take charge of every aspect of their consumption patterns. You would have to do it, as Monique often says, you would need a PhD in being a consumer, and you would have to do it full time. And most of us have other things to do with our time than work on our consumption patterns. There is an imperative, I think, and it's one that's shared. If you allow consumers to step back from their individual purchasing decisions and express their values and their choices, as I've said, 9 out of 10 of them will say, yes, the environment is important to me. Yes, it's important that we behave sustainably and that we preserve the planet for our children and grandchildren. It's then, I think, the job of everybody, industry, retailers, policymakers, educators, to come together to work out how that expressed preference can be satisfied on a day-to-day basis without expecting the individual consumer, the poor man or woman at the end of the chain, to take on the responsibility of responsible choices. Embedding sustainability in products is one way of doing it, and we've seen that there are good examples of that. As Monique says, in the end, regulation can take the most polluting, least sustainable products out of the market. I think retailers have a very important job in directing their customers to sustainable choices because they're able to assimilate the information, to measure and make judgments about what is sustainable in ways that consumers aren't. It's important that we have an agreed methodology so that we can choose whether it's Kenyan beans or Dutch beans that are the most or least sustainable. And I think we're working on that within the Commission.
And I just wonder whether you would also have a view, Valerie, I mean, you were talking a little bit about, in a sense, a common communication campaign, which is saying, for example, turn it down by 10 degrees or whatever. I'm going to come back to you immediately and then maybe get a further comment from Valerie. But are you seeing that there's no point in these trying to communicate these good educational change your behaviour things? We're wasting our time doing it. He says being as provocative as Monique was a little bit earlier. I want to save Valerie a lot of effort if it's deeply misguided. On the other hand, is there some value in the industry as well as, because at the moment there's buy my product, it's better than that one. So I'm being bombarded by different colours and differentiation between all these things shouting at me. But I'm just wondering whether that higher message, that nobler education message is worthwhile or not.
Well, all our
break it to me gently.
All our research shows that education is not very helpful in moving consumers towards the best choices, whether you're talking about financial services, energy, or sustainability. So education is not the answer, unfortunately. But that is not to say that it's useless. I don't think so at all. I think it's an element, it's a strand, it reinforces other interventions, other policy initiatives. The fact that 30 degrees now appears on most washing machine dials as the first choice, instead of it being 90, and you have to move the way down to about program number 10 before you get to a 30-degree wash. That's a mutually reinforcing element with your campaign. Okay. But it's not, I don't think it's a solution in itself. It's important, it's laudable. We would encourage it, certainly, but it's only part of the picture.
Monique, and then I'll come to the gentleman in the room.
I think that raising awareness is always good, and with some segments of the consumer population will get it. But the problem is you must not over-trust the impact that you can have with simple messages, because also the message is not simple. The message is not just wash at low temperature. Wash at low temperature. Unless you have an allergy, unless it's white, because at the end you should wash sometimes higher than low. So it's quite a complicated message. So if you oversimplify the message and then the consumer has problems with the end product, then you're lost.
Okay. Yep. My name is Thomas Müller-Kirschbaum. I'm from Henkel in Düsseldorf. And I have a question and an answer for Monique. I would like to start. I would like to start with an answer, and that can help you and other desperate housewives. The topic is why detergents are better and giving better brightness, even with smarter chemistry. The example is very, very simple. If you look to the lighting here, 150 years ago, we would have candles here and burned a lot of energy, and you have the same brightness than at that time, even better, and you save a lot of energy and spend much less energy. The same is with laundry detergents. The chemistry is not more, the chemistry is smarter. We have enzymes, we have polymers, we have just better materials. So this is the answer to everybody. This was your question, and this is the answer.
Fantastic.
I'm
just enjoying the between the two of you.
No, but I have a question to you.
Go on then, yes.
We learned that we should not focus on low temperature solutions. This is what my takeaway. We should not talk about that because it's too complicated, and life is not so easy to say we use every time only 20 or 30 degrees. Right. I would like to have a sentence not with what we should not do, but what we should do. Thank you.
Monique. Yes, I don't want to take this conversation about what temperature I should clean my smalls at much further, but
No.
But if you have advice for me or a response.
It's rather. It has nothing to do with your clothes. No, the fact is that indeed there has been improvement in chemistry, but also then there is emerging technology. There is also nanotechnology, and the fact is that there you have new risks, and the way that you are selling this in a policy message is really wrongly reassuring the consumer, because the risk assessment is not necessarily there, the methodology, and so you create new risks, new risks and new questions for consumers. And if you want a positive message from me, you can get it. I don't want to be seen as negative. My positive message is engage into multi-factor sustainability trends. That means that, of course, there must be better machines, there must be better chemicals, there must be the textile must be adapted, and that's the way. And the consumer must be educated and informed, and then you have it. Yeah, simple.
Fantastic. It's taken us an hour to get there. That's fine. I may be going to come back to you, Jonas, just because you connect with a lot of consumers, and you're offering a lot of shiny machines that do very clever things. And I think I'm just interested again in the extent to which you are requiring consumers to put quite a lot of thought process into decision making and all the rest of it, or whether the trick in life is to make it simple for us all the way through. You do all the hard work, you get it out. I just want to push a button, and I want to be happy, and I want to be able to get on with my life. And you're going to have to do the hard work, rather than trying to convince me that I've got to make multiple choices and worry.
I think that's a very important point, actually, and that's a little bit what I touched on. When it comes to things like auto dosing and sensing, assisting the consumer in making use of those auto programs and offering them. Of course, the challenge is, and we know that also through research, is that the consumer wants to be in charge very often. We have had auto programs on dishwashers for many years. They are not used very frequently. That's the reality, even though it would provide a better result and consume less energy. So I do think that a combination of offering the right choice in a simple way, and really encouraging that use in terms of how that's the first choice, let's say, in combination with education is absolutely required, and supported, of course, by the right type of regulation and of course, again, enforceable regulation. Okay. If you get a good mix of that, then I think we can drive.
And I just wondered also whether you wanted to respond, because there was, I think, again from Monique, quite an interesting challenge, saying, okay, using a dishwasher will reduce the amount of water being used as compared with 4 billion people running the tap, trying to get it hot and all the rest of it. However, there's a whole set of resource issues in the electricity, in the machine, in transport and all the rest of it. Just wondering how you respond to that, because that is in a sense a challenge, saying if you try and keep it simple, then you're not looking at the full range of cycle
The point
metrics.
is completely right, that we need to look at the total life cycle, let's say, impact, environmental and sustainability impact. The answer, though, is that 85% or so of the energy related to the activities of washing or cleaning dishes is in the use phase.
Right.
And of course, the issue there with hand washing, to be specific about that, is if people were just running cold water and trying to rinse their dishes that way, then you wouldn't consume that much energy. But of course, they're not. They're using hot water. And if you consume a lot of hot water, you consume an enormous amount of energy. So I think, you know, and we'll go in and do the detailed calculations on that. But trust me, an automatic washing machine, properly used, where you don't pre-rinse the dishes too much, is way, way more sustainable than hand washing.
Right, right. And I just wonder, do you think it's 1% of people who use your dishwashers properly? Or
You know,
2%? My brother-in-law, just so you know, my brother-in-law, he pre-hand washes all the dishes that are going into your dishwasher.
Yeah.
He's a
unfortunately-
clever, he's a
Right.
lawyer.
Yeah. You know, that's a sad fact. I think it's good for the people assembled here. I think that's a very good thing, right?
Yeah.
But no, the reality is that's of course true. But of course, how do you change that? If you don't use education to change that, what should you then use? That's a little bit my
Yeah, no, that's
my
interesting.
question. Yeah.
I'm just going to take. I'm going to take one more comment from or a question. There was a gentleman down at the front, and then I'm going to come to you for our final dishwasher take-home message, or preferably not dishwasher. So you are.
I'm Clifford Henry. I'm with Procter & Gamble. And I wanted to thank the AIC for actually inviting to get another perspective. I've been to a number of trade associations, and rarely do we have sort of our friends here with us giving us some pointers. One question I would have is, what role do you see of consumers educating other consumers? With the connectivity that we have today, I think there's a lot of instances where consumers are willing to believe other consumers, and that is pretty easy, even with a frustrated host person that can't spend a lot of time on the internet, but a quick message. I think I'd be interested to see if you see a role for consumers educating other consumers.
Certainly, yes. And again, don't rely just on my opinion. We have done research on this, and people sometimes unadvisedly rely on the opinions of their friends and family. If you ask people where they take financial advice, top number one, friends and family. Maybe not such a good idea. Maybe
But
it is.
dishwashers?
And dishwashers, I hope you talk to your brother-in-law.
Give it up.
So, yeah, the other thing that we find is that people tell, and this is counterintuitive, at least it was for me, people tell their family and friends about good experiences more than they tell them about bad experiences. And I suspect it's counterintuitive to a lot of people in industry, but that's what they say. So if you can deliver something to consumers, you can reduce their energy bills, you can get their clothes cleaner, doing fewer washes, then I think that's something that can be spread. Obviously, social media can help that, but I think there, again, I would sound a note of caution in that we're starting to see a backlash against consumer-generated content, pro-consumerism. People are beginning to wonder whether review sites are for real, whether it's verifiable, whether it's true, whether it's honest.
Monique.
Yes, just to add, my member organizations, they are producers of magazines, also online magazines, and of course, user-generated content is a competition to our member organizations. So they go on that trend, and they moderate user-generated content, and it's really very interesting to see also the neighborhood advice that people give to each other, like this plumber, you should not go to him, or you should, he's really perfect, he comes within the half an hour or so. And so this is certainly the future. You should, of course, not again rely on consumers educating consumers, but that can be certainly one of the forces of better consumer awareness on certain things. Now, I don't know whether washing at low temperature will be the top topic of the month, but that will have to be seen. We can create it, if you want to.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to come to you all just for a final, start at the far end with Christian. It's just a final message. My proposition, our proposition, is that sustainability, achieving sustainability, somehow the long-term survival of the planet with 5-8 billion people on it, has to be something that we all take seriously. And if you see what's going on in Doha or what's coming out from some of the research, we rightly should be very worried. So we have got to deploy every sinew to get on that path towards ensuring sustainability. And we have a role as members of AISE on this. If you had a final message related to that interface with the consumer that you would offer us as a kind of take-home message about how we engage, don't engage, give up, or do whatever to my brother-in-law, what would that be? Christian, a final message.
Well, I'm not sure I have really one message, but maybe one word, and I think sort of it is about dialogue and it's about connectivity. I think what the gentleman from Procter & Gamble said, I think, is crucial in this, and the retailer's insight in terms of the role that social media can play, I think, and is really, I think, going to play a useful role. Is that who you trust. Rather than a one-way directional, push it down your throat kind of message, but I think in the sense of, the social connectivity. And yet, education, I believe, and it may be surprising to come from a retailer, but I think certainly, has to play a role. I must say I'm somewhat puzzled to say that education, is not a solution. If we look at all the sustainability challenges that we have, and if I pick on you, Jackie, when you say the consumers is primarily looking at immediate, selfish interest rather than at communal, longer-term interest, at the end of the day, in order to shift the needle, collectively, and of course there's a role for public authority, there's a role for manufacturers, there's a role for retailers, we're going to have through dialogues to come on to messages to shift that behavior. I've worked the last 3 years before retail in the packaging industry. And if you look at this country, which is, for one thing, I think, is sort of a champion in sorting its packaging waste, I think this has gone through years of actually educating consumers, and all have played a key role into that. So I think it is quite important. So I would say, dialogue, connectivity, and make sure in order to indeed shift the needle collectively. And maybe one final point, I think, in that, because I try to, if not come to the rescue, but I think try to understand what ISE and its members have tried to do, because very often I've worked in chemical industry and we got very often the message from consumers, it's far too complicated. So I think the industry is trying to come, maybe it has oversimplified, but to try the message that, consumers understand that they get it, and yes, there may be nuances to the message, but at the end of the day, you have to bring it down to something that is also relatively simple, even if there are some nuances to it.
Okay. Monica, message for the members of AISE?
Yes, if I may so. I know that consumer organizations have their own responsibility, but I use this opportunity to just talk about your responsibility. So I would say, I have had time to prepare a sentence, transform Paul's vision into corporate culture.
Transform Paul's vision into corporate culture.
And make the true sustainable choice an easy, an attractive, and an affordable one for the consumer.
Okay.
Is that a program?
That sounds all right. So in Paul we trust. Okay.
This is not a Unilever meeting.
Indeed.
No, but he was a speaker.
Jackie.
I think just two things. One is persistence.
Right.
It takes a long while to change people's habits.
You're talking about my brother-in-law again.
Probably
aren't
your
you?
brother-in-law is included. So one shouldn't give up because it doesn't work immediately or because it's difficult. And the other is trust. It takes a long time to establish trust. For the consumer to have a trust in a brand, a trust in an intermediary, who could be the retailer, could be the consumer association. And it's very easily lost. It can be lost in an hour, in one false move on the market. So I think it's a precious commodity, as precious as some of the other things we've been talking about, and you really need to nurture it.
Thank you. Jonas.
Yeah, I think I really want to end on a positive message. I think I showed the slide, and you all know it, the massive improvement that's happened over the last 10 to 15 years in terms of the efficiency and sustainability of our common products. and the effect in reduction in energy consumption and water consumption, as well as the sustainability of the chemicals involved. So I think that it's a strong reinforcement of the fact that it is possible to change behaviors. It takes time, but it happens, and it has a major impact, what we've seen. And I think that the journey, as I showed in another slide, we're not slowing down, we're accelerating. And the consumers are making those choices. It's consumers choosing to buy, in many cases, then a more expensive washing machine to get the most efficient appliance. I think that's a very positive
Great.
message.
Thank you. Valerie?
Well, just to say that I think this industry is a very competitive one, but when it comes to the sustainability agenda, there is a lot of great work happening to address the two sides, the sustainable production aspects and the sustainable consumption aspects. And you challenge us on the eco-design topic, and actually we believe that we are already, through schemes like the Charter for Sustainable Cleaning, doing eco-design avant l'heure, but through self-regulation, because we are exactly working with the Charter in driving the mass market towards these better standards and helping consumers understand and distinguish with a pan-European scheme and one single visual what these products comply with. So that's the efforts that we make as producers towards that path. But even with an eco-designed product or even an eco-label product, if they still under load and if they still wash too high when now detergents are formulated in a way that with the lightly soil level and so on, you can actually deliver good cleaning performance, why not give them information to do so with all the necessary completeness and potential disclaimers on conditions when they need to wash, for example, at higher temperature. But my last point is, can we still try to engage them together? Because that would be
A good point to end. Ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, can I say thank you very much to our speakers, panelists, for giving up time today to be with us. So thank you all very much indeed.